Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear viewers, welcome back to Youth Challenges. For those of you that have just joined us after the break, today we are discussing and conversating with Mr. Mahtab Aziz, who we have in the studio, who's been very generous to take some time out of his day to join us today. And prior to the break, we were talking about his journey to becoming a solicitor and some of the inspiring stories that he can share with us for the youth. On that note, to continue the discussion, Mr. Aziz, what I wanted to ask you was, what is one piece of advice that you received when you were younger, which you would like to pass on to the youth?
Yes, in fact, that was actually given to me by a music teacher.
Oh, okay.
When I was, I think it's about 18, and I went to a school called Bancroft School, and the teacher there. And the teachers there all were, obviously very good, but the music teacher was very inspirational because when we used to go to his class, he used to be very enthusiastic and make us enjoy the subject. And I remember one day he just sort of said to us, look, because we were discussing something about music and how difficult it is, the chords and so on, and he said, listen, whatever you get in life, there's always a solution to it. You must always be able to find a way to arrive at an answer for it. So if you see something which you find is difficult, there's going to be an answer, because that problem would not arise unless there was an answer. So I listened to that and I thought, that's a good thing. Every problem there is a solution. Yeah.
That is very good advice. For every problem there is a solution. Yeah. And I imagine that's what you tell your clients. Okay, yeah. So on the topic of advice, Mr. Aziz, if you could go back in time,
yeah,
and if you could meet the younger version of Mr. Mahtab Aziz, let's say 18-year-old version of yourself,
yes,
what advice would you give to him?
When I was 18, I was probably a bit sort of starstruck sort of thing. Because in those days, people used to call me all sorts of things like, I look like John Travolta, or I look like, if I was called so many times, I looked like Robert De Niro. I know in those days, we had all these sort of fancy things going on, and I had much more hair in those days and slimmer. And I used to probably spend a bit too much time looking at those aspects than I needed to. Even though I was still successful, but I felt that at certain times, when you're a certain age, you're likely to be distracted more easily. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think that's relevant even more now, so with the advent of social media platforms and TikTok and these sort of things, Instagram. As you may know, that Australia has actually banned the use of TikTok, yep, for underage children. And so therefore the distractions are like magnified many times now. So in those days we sometimes go to the cinema, or sometimes go to the cinema, or we never used to be reliant on our phones so much.
Yeah.
So even though I probably was thinking of Hollywood career at that time, misguidedly, but yeah, it's that's the thing. I think I probably would have said to myself, don't waste your time. Get on with it.
Fair enough. And that thing you mentioned, Robert De Niro, I do see some resemblance there. I can't overlook it now. It's just I can see it now. It's there, definitely. All right. So talking about reflection. So we spoke about what advice you'd give your younger self. So essentially that comes under reflection. And many people that I've spoken to, many people we've had on our show, they talk a lot about reflection, reflecting on their goals, whether they achieved them, why they didn't achieve them, and reflection on where they are today and where they used to be. And I personally believe that reflection is very important.
Yes.
It provides you a degree of insight into reasons why.
Yeah.
And what I would like to know, Mr. Aziz, is do you spend a lot of time reflecting upon your actions or reflecting upon your career?
Yes, very much so. I think reflection is very important. But you see, reflection is only as good as how much knowledge you can apply to it. So what I would say to young people these days is try to acquire as much knowledge as you can. Try and read as much as you can, because I find that young people don't read as much as they used to. I think a lot of youngsters, if you give them a book, they'll probably just take it nicely and put it away somewhere, never read it. So,
Yeah.
so knowledge is very important. You've got to have knowledge, and as much as you can. I mean, example probably I would give is Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was, in fact, got into a lot of trouble as a young boy, and he was sent to a youth detention center. And when he was at the youth detention center, he was picked up by a guy called Bob Stewart, and he thought, he recognized that this guy can perhaps, you know, do not too bad in boxing. So he took him to Customato. Now, the thing about Customato was a very intelligent man. He had so much knowledge, and he made Mike Tyson read so many books. So that's why Mike Tyson, when he speaks not like a boxer, he speaks like an intelligent man.
Mm-hmm.
Even now, when he gives out these short clips of his video, you'll see he says something that from wisdom. And that wisdom comes from knowledge, and that knowledge comes from reading. That's what Customato instilled in Mike Tyson at a very young age. It got him to read. And that's why he has been so successful. And his business manager was actually a friend of mine, Steve Lott,
Yes.
who unfortunately passed away in 2021. But a very, very good man, and we used to speak regularly about this early period of Mike Tyson's. And Mike Tyson was what he is because of Customato's advice to him that he must acquire knowledge. And that's why he was so different from many boxers. And so in terms of reflection, yes, he used to reflect. He used to reflect with Customato. They used to sit there in the Catskill Mountains, and they used to reflect. And he used to think about where he's going in life. But that would be, tempered from the knowledge he had that he'd gained from reading so many books. So yes, reflection is very important.
Brilliant. And that is brilliant advice, Mr. Aziz. Wisdom comes from knowledge.
Yeah.
Knowledge comes from reading.
Yes.
That's my key takeaway from today. And I would suggest that is a very good key takeaway for the youth as well. And I really do like that. Thinking back to your career, Mr. Aziz, what is the most rewarding experience that you've had?
I think probably, if generally speaking, yes, I've got some very, very good results as a result of my sort of strategy in a legal case. A lot of people and made their lives better. Generally speaking, that's probably, I say that. But I think in terms of a rewarding result, would probably be one. There was a case I did once whereby basically it was a point of law, it was an argument of law, and basically I put my arguments forward to the judge, and that judge was actually the editor of Archbold. Archbold is basically the book that every barrister refers to.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the editor of that book. So you can imagine he's very knowledgeable, and
Yeah.
because he's the guy who wrote that.
Yeah, definitely.
Wrote the Archbold, and I actually that was put before because I disagreed with what he said, his interpretation of a certain point of law. I disagreed with that. I said that's not right. So we went to the Court of Appeal, and all the judges agreed with me that my interpretation of that point of law was correct. That's probably the most rewarding one, because if I, as a solicitor, could challenge the writer of Archbold and win it, then that means that was a great achievement for me.
Indeed, that is a massive achievement, Mr. Aziz. And I can imagine a lot of work must have gone into that.
Yeah.
So the question I wanted to ask you, Mr. Aziz, is how do you balance your professional life with your private life?
Yes, I mean, it's not easy. not easy. And I think you will find that most people who excel at their particular chosen field, they will probably regard it as something that they think about all the time, and they will spend time on it. Probably every day and most of the day. And similarly, if you want to excel in any field, they say practice makes perfect. So you've got to be able to read as much as you can, but that involves time. So the problem is that many lawyers many lawyers work long hours, and the problem is that that affects your family life and affects your leisure life and everything. So the secret is to try and find a balance, and the secret is to actually, if we're in a position to delegate a lot of tasks. A lot of people who are very good at what they do, they like to do everything themselves. They don't like to delegate. But I think the secret is to delegate, because if you delegate and those tasks which another person can equally do, you should give them to someone else to do. That will save you a lot of time. And I think that's what a lot of lawyers have to find, that they have to find that ability to delegate tasks. Because otherwise you end up spending, doing like 60 hours, 70 hours a week of working. Because often, in our line of work, it is something which needs a lot of drafting and redrafting and drafting. It takes a lot of time. So it's not easy. I think doctors and lawyers have the same problem of trying to find a work-life balance. And I think in the early days and in the mid-years, it's probably going to be very difficult. You will have that problem of finding, proper work-life balance. So I think as you get more and more experience, you're able to, or you should be able to, delegate a lot of tasks. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. That is very sound advice, Mr. Aziz. So it is not a myth that lawyers work very long hours.
Yeah.
So what do you like to do to actually have some downtime and just relax and just clear your mind? Personally, I love cricket.
Yeah.
And I play a lot of cricket. In the summer, I play cricket all summer. But in the winter, I tend to go to the nets. And I find that focus when you're just playing cricket and nothing else is on your mind. You're batting, you're focusing on the ball, you're hitting the ball,
Yes.
you're playing the shots. And I find that to be a very good way of relaxing and de-stressing from the troubles of your job and your life. And on that note, I'd like to ask you, Mr. Aziz, what is it that you do to relax and just de-stress?
Yes. I mean, I think relaxing and leisure time is very important. Yes, I like cricket as well. I like I like playing cricket, but obviously meaning just not in a sort of formal setting, but I like playing cricket, in a park somewhere.
Yeah.
It's funny actually, because when I was about in my 20s, I used to play in the park, in Albert's Park in Leighton, and we used to have this regular group of people coming and playing cricket. And it was funny because at that age, I used to have long hair, and I used to do medium pace bowling. And when I used to come, people used to say, "Oh, call Imran." They used to refer to as Imran. They used to say, "Oh, it's Imran." It was very funny because literally I realized that when I was qualified as a lawyer, that he would actually be my client.
Oh wow!
For 20 years, I was his lawyer.
Wow, this is Imran Khan you're talking about.
Before he became Prime Minister, I was his lawyer. I did most of his legal stuff, particularly to do with some article that were written about him that had to be corrected, and I in fact I was involved. The very first case I did with him was for the Ian Botham and Anna Lamb. They started a claim against him.
Yeah.
So I got him towards the end of it, but that was the first case I did with him, and after that I did most of his work. So cricket, yes, cricket is something that could definitely, sort of a relaxing effect. And I like cricket, and in fact I represented Monty Panesar and Wasim Akram. And Imran Khan, of course, and these are obviously great cricket players. Wasim Akram obviously regarded as one of the best fast bowlers of all time, and Imran Khan is the top 10 all-rounders of all time. And of course, my favourite batsman, of course, was Javed Miandad.
Yeah.
I really liked his style of play.
Yeah, and
I felt he was very entertaining, and he was so natural. If you watch a sports person, an elite sports person who has natural ability, it's so good to watch. And the way he used to play his strokes and all that, it was very, very good. So he's my favourite batsman, Javed Miandad, and I used to love watching him. Apart from that, I'm a kickboxing coach, so I do, I still practice my kickboxing, and that's another way of I find I can, take some stress out.
That's brilliant. And that's a fact that I've learned about you today, actually, is that I didn't know you represented such big celebrities.
Yeah.
And now it all kind of adds up where the name came from, the celebrity lawyer, because you have celebrity clients. So yeah, I'm quite taken away by that. But that's amazing, and it just comes to show that you have definitely excelled in your chosen career path, and that is why you've represented such big personalities.
Yes.
On that note, Mr. Aziz, what I'd like to ask you is, a lot of youngsters today, what they suffer from is depression and anxiety.
Yes.
And this happens to a lot of students during their undergraduate years, their second year of university, some even earlier than that, some in the early stages of their career.
Yes.
And the reason being, a lot of the time, based on the feedback that I've received from many viewers, is that they put a lot of pressure on themselves to achieve a particular result,
Yes.
to become successful in their studies, to become successful in their career. And that pressure really, really deflates their mental health.
Yes.
So the question I'd like to ask you, Mr. Aziz, is how can one person remain motivated, work hard, but at the same time look after their own well-being and their own mental health?
Yes, yes. It's a very good question and very relevant in this day and age because, as I said before, one of the most important aspects of my life is being a Muslim. I read the Quran in 3 different languages, and I sort of more or less understand it very well. And I often find that to every question or problem we might have, the Quran has a solution. And if you read the Quran, you'll see that there's lots of motivational verses in the Quran. And most of them will say that, look, you have to be a good person in life. You have to be good to others, good to your parents, good to orphans, and good to your friends and family. And so if you take each aspect and actually take it on properly and fully, you'll find that you will never get depressed. I find that the issue of depression never comes into it. That's why when I was growing up, obviously being in the English society, often I get my friends say, "Oh, do you want to have a drink or something? Have a drink, have a drink, have." And I said, "No, thank you. I've never ever drunk alcohol." And they say, "Well, how could you not feel happy unless you've been like they call it, like drunk or had a binge?" I said, "No, I think you don't need to become drunk to be happy. You don't need to binge to be content within yourself because you have everything. Your mind and your physical self has everything. There's no need to resort to drugs or smoking or alcohol as substitutes. Everything is within yourself. And if you read the Quran, you'll find it there."
MashaAllah, that is amazing, amazing advice. And you mentioned that you read the Quran in 3 languages. That is actually something that we've been stressing on this show very often, is the fact that the Quran is not just a book, it is a guide. It has countless pieces of advice in there, countless stories where you can find yourself referring to assist with your real life, your day-to-day issues and your day-to-day problems. And that is why it's so important to actually read the Quran in whatever your native language is, whether that is English, whether that is Urdu, whatever it is your language is. It is very important to read the Quran in that language, to understand it, and then to implement it in your day-to-day life, along with the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, which again is like an instruction manual when they both come together. Now, we've spoken a lot about your career, and we've spoken a lot about the advice you'd give the youth and challenges you've faced, and you've shared many inspiring stories with us, which we're very thankful for. And Mr. Aziz, I'd like to ask you a bit of a personal question, if I may, and that is, what's a fun fact about you that not many people know?
Right. I think probably people, when they see me, how I work, and a lot of people don't understand that actually it all comes down to my faith. It's my religious, knowledge and faith and how I understand. Because you see, the modern sort of thinking is that religion is backward. and they think that religion is something that's not for the modern day. But I feel it's opposite. Religion is for past, for now, and the future. In our holy book, in the Quran, there are things which are only coming out now. And that's there will be more things that will come out in the future that will say, oh, yes, it's all written in the Quran. And for that reason, I think people, when they look at me, they think I'm a person perhaps that's motivated by, success. And that's not the case. The reason for my success is the Quran, because the Quran says that whatever you do, you must do it, to your best ability, and in a way that actually you must live your life in a way that you be humble. And there was a particular verse which says that those are the people who, if some foolish person comes to, say sort of bad thing, they will just say something backward in a peaceful way and move on. This is one example. That I mean, it's chapter 25, where it's mentioned that if you're a person who will do well in life, then ignore those negatives and only think about the positives. And that also applies to how you deal with your parents. In the Quran, it says many times over that you must be good to your parents and you must be generous to your close relatives. And you mustn't be stingy. So this is something which our people must recognize. It's there in the Quran. It says that person who is stingy is basically not a good Muslim. Basically, what it says in that particular verse, it says that you must be not too extravagant, and you must not be stingy. So you have to take the middle path. The middle path. But that means don't be stingy.
Yeah. Now, that is a very brilliant note to end this episode on. Unfortunately, Mr. Aziz, we've come to the close of our episode. And the hour just wasn't enough with you. I could talk to you all day about and just listening on these inspiring stories. But viewers, unfortunately, that's all the time that we had. So until next time, look out for youth challenges and take care of your friends, your family, and of your loved ones. Until then, from me and Mr. Mahtab Aziz, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.